Collectively, they take care of 50 billion in savings annually. It's a massive, massive number.
That's bigger than the market cap of some JSE listed companies.
It is.
Hello and a warm welcome to yet another fantastic episode of the JSE Investor Avenue Podcast series. Now, we've been doing this for a while, as you can tell, discussing a wide variety of concepts and themes that speak to you and I as investors. Everything from understanding dividends, exchange-traded funds, how our behavior influences our investment decisions. And today we've decided to go back to a key concept that many of us are very familiar with. Stockvels. Yes, group savings or collective savings ultimately formed on the basis of trust and community, where compound interest, growth, and of course the benefit of group savings are able to be benefits to individuals who form part of these investment clubs. While it's critical for us to take a look at how they've not only evolved, but most importantly, technology and how financial services institutions, especially banks, are looking to meet us at our point of need as customers. So today, it's all about Stockvels, and boy, are we going to give you some insight into the shifts in the dynamics that are taking place right now. For this conversation, I'm joined with us here in studio by Tawanda Rumhuma, who joins us as Executive Head for Savings and Investments at Absa. Such a pleasure to have you, Tawanda.
Thank you for having me, Gugu.
I think you can tell I'm excited about this one, right?
I can. Almost as excited as I am.
Exactly. And primarily because when it comes to Stockvels, they're essentially a part of our life as Africans, as South Africans, and really people right all over the world. Because group savings really speaks to, I guess, the birthplace of how communities, families, and countries have been able to form a sense of wealth and provision for themselves. Maybe let's just start there. In your perspective, how Stockvels have really evolved within the South African environment.
Look, I think I was talking last year around how they're an integral part of society. Yeah. We see them as a form of collective empowerment, and they're really part of the fabric of society. Right? In the conversations and the stories that we've been listening to, it's hard to find anyone who's not in some way touched by a Stockvel, part of a Stockvel, influenced by a Stockvel. And over the years, I guess in terms of evolution, there was almost a clear divide between them, Stockvels and group savings as an informal setup, and the financial services sector as a very regulated and formal setup. But we're starting to see that coming together, us finding each other as part of that ecosystem. And I'm excited to see some of the developments around and where potentially we can take the relationships that we have with Stockvels to drive a savings culture in South Africa.
100%. And that's really important because we do have a very low savings rate in South Africa. And ultimately we know it's that discipline, financial literacy, but also having the support structure in place to enable South Africans to better save. And let's underscore that level of trust that's being developed between banks, financial services institutions, as well as Stockvels. Because when I think of Stockvels and how they've influenced my life, my mother was a part of a Stockvel. So was my father. Hey, I even joined one earlier on in my career. But ultimately, it's always formed on this group, this community of individuals who fundamentally have trust as their means of currency. So how are we finding this merger taking place with the banks?
Yeah, look, I think trust is a fundamental element into developing that relationship. I think we've spoken to Ubaba Lukele, who's the chairman of NASASA.
Yes.
He will tell you the journey that Stockvels have taken from being seen as something that's actually illegal to now us actually coming together with the financial services.
And when we talk numbers here, this is like more than 4 billion the last time I checked in terms of the value of Stockvels in the country?
Much, much more.
Oh,
right. I think the numbers that are thrown around, there are 800,000 savings groups, right, Stockvels, which amounts to north of 11 million members in that. And collectively, they take care of 50 billion in savings annually. It's a massive, massive number.
That's bigger than the market cap of some JSE listed companies.
It is. So it's like I said before, it's part of the fabric of society, and that number is not a small number, right? Like you're saying, it's that's how big they are, and that's how big the opportunities we see in partnering with them to help them achieve their collective goals.
And maybe let's talk about how you've approached this as Absa. Not only have you paid a heightened focus and attention on Stockvels, even having awards, but also looking to partner with some Stockvel members to actually understand what their needs are. And I'm keen for us just to get a better understanding as to the different viewpoints that you can share with us in terms of the solutions you're providing for Stockvels.
Sure. Look, what we are trying to do is to really generate that savings culture. Right, it's easy for us to be looking at this as a business, as numbers, as profits, but the way we're approaching it is really to drive financial literacy, financial inclusion, and the savings culture. Right? The numbers will be a natural consequence of this. So you spoke of the awards that we did last year. That was our part of shining a light into Stockvels, right? Focus on them and telling their stories, right? We know that the stories that come out of there will inspire others to start saving, to start learning about finances.
Oh, whet our appetite. Tell us a little bit more about the kind of stories you heard from some of the Stockvel winners.
Just last week, one of the winners from our inaugural awards last year, part of their winning was we matched the 50,000 Rand that we gave them so that they donate to a charity of their choice. Beautiful. I was in Cape Town last week at Daisy Educare, which is a preschool setup. They use the funds to renovate, and their focus there is to build these young minds into leaders of tomorrow, as you would imagine. And that's a really, really wonderful story about how we then partnered with Ntokozo Investment Club and impacted lives. And I think the work that they're doing there is actually quite it's interesting and far-reaching in terms of the impact. Yeah. We came across a Stockvel that started off on Facebook, and the size of it is amazing. I think it's almost a Stockvel of Stockvels, and it's not just South Africa. They cut across Botswana, Zimbabwe, and they're into educating each other and using their collective bargaining power, right? Which is really part of what Stockvels are about. It's I think the stories are endless, and I think the whole idea of the Stockvel Awards, which we opened up to any Stockvel, not just those that bank with us. The idea was to showcase these stories, right? And hopefully inspire the next person to start on that journey and ultimately get South Africa saving. And I think the economists will tell you how big a deal savings are in terms of economic growth, level of investments, productivity, and the growth that comes from that. And Stockvels are a big part in driving that culture.
100%. This sounds fantastic, and I think underscores, just the evolution of Stockvels themselves. We might have started off just thinking that it's purely based on group savings and the members themselves being beneficiaries of their inputs, as well as the interest and outcomes that they gain. But what's phenomenal as well, and I guess we'll profile one of these Stockvels a little later on in this podcast, but is the fact that these Stockvels are also used to start businesses, to empower communities, to provide development within the spaces that they're in, whether it's early childhood development centers, building homes, providing some level of education and support to those that are around them. And I think this is really intriguing as well, tying back to what you had initially mentioned around meeting the Stockvel members at their point of need. How are you seeing this shift, I guess, take place where investors are saying it's not just about interest and getting a payout at the end of December, but we're looking to build long-term sustainable wealth here?
Look, I think the Stockvel setup, what it's allowing a lot of individuals to do, from the informal savers to more sophisticated savers, is to, when they pull together their resources, it's ceased to be just about, to your point, about us putting our money together. At the end of the year, we buy groceries or we split it up, the interest and so on. It's become a vehicle for so much more. We've seen Stockvels that club their money together with the intention of starting a journey, a bigger investment journey, right? They start off in simple savings account, which banks like ourselves offer, and when they have enough, they invest in property, they invest on the stock market, which as individuals might be difficult for them to do. Not as simple, but as a collective, that's what it's allowed them to do. So we've really seen an evolution from a simple stokvel that keeps money in someone's house, keeping records in a book, to actually us developing relationships between stokvels and banks, tailoring our products to meet their needs and allowing them to transition into different journeys. Some are investing collectively in livestock, and I think property is becoming a big thing. Some get into crypto. It's amazing things that we're seeing there.
Right. Yeah. Well, we are here at the JSE, so I'm assuming they also leverage opportunities to stay invested in equities. Is that a growing trend, especially with the various investment products available?
It is, definitely. I think the journeys that we see, one of the products that we have is an investment club account, right? What it allows customers to do is put their funds there as they build towards something, whatever that case may be. We've seen others move into ETFs, directly into stocks, into gold. We've heard those stories. So I think the evolution that we've seen has been nothing short of phenomenal, if I can call it that, because from an individual now accessing these sophisticated vehicles, investment vehicles that they otherwise would not have access to as an individual. So stokvels have allowed them to do that, and it's a really, really wonderful story.
Exactly. I'm excited, and I'm hoping that to you as our viewers, if you have any comments or feedback, make sure that you jot them down in the comments section. We want to hear from you what kind of stokvel you might be a member of, how they've influenced your life, the evolution of that stokvel in your life, and maybe some new innovative solutions that you'd like the JSE, Absa, and many other banking and financial institutions and firms to respond to in terms of your need. One interesting point as well, Tawanda, that I do think is important for us to focus on is just the generational shifts. I spoke about how my parents played an influence on my life regarding stokvels, and to such an extent that I also became a member of what I then described as an investment club because it sounded cooler, because we're younger. We're millennials and Gen Zs who are trying to build wealth in our own way and with different areas of interest. What are we seeing in terms of the youth or younger participants when it comes to group savings, largely linked to stokvels?
I think there's been a marked shift in terms of the demographic in stokvels. I think where in the past you would see the older people being part of those, but what we are seeing now is an upward trend in participation from the youth. I think generally some of them club together to, like I was saying, get into more sophisticated investment vehicles, right? But what it's really done is we've seen some level of entrepreneurship in there, because what they're putting together really is capital, right? And when they do these things together, I think in terms of spreading that risk around, not just about putting the capital together, we've seen a lot of activity from the younger individuals in stokvels, and part of that has been that bridging between stokvels as an informal vehicle and financial services that we've seen. Right?
Gotcha.
We're starting to come much closer, and the digital capabilities that the Gen Zs would be very familiar and comfortable with, the solutions that we're offering to stokvels, which really speaks to some of the needs. There's a very big need around transparency, right? And these digital solutions help with that. So that has helped with the youth and younger individuals taking up or being part of stokvels, because it really allows that collective type of empowerment, if I can call it that. And trend-wise, we're seeing more and more of that. I saw a number of 43%, if I'm not mistaken, to say 43% of stokvel members are seniors. And generally, I think in the banking sector, we see seniors as 55 plus.
Okay.
But over the years, we've seen an increasing participation from younger customers, as they see this as a way into different things that otherwise they wouldn't be able to access on their own.
This is very refreshing because not only are younger people coming on board, but as you've mentioned, the digital evolution has also been quite critical. And I find that so fascinating because, again, it takes away the need for perhaps even monthly meetings, meeting at someone's house and jotting down things on pen and paper. So it ensures the safety of their documentation and information, highlights transparency so that we all know what we're getting ourselves involved into, and an understanding of, I guess, the constitution of the stokvel and how it ties in to the investment or savings goals that they have. From a banking point of view, this is also critical in terms of FICA documentation. And I think it's important for us to underscore this because for anyone who works with a bank or has their money within a key regulated financial institution, that kind of transparency is necessary, not only for the integrity of the institution and following through with regulation, but even the safety of our capital for us as depositors. Maybe let's underscore that because sometimes people tend to get frustrated with the amount of paperwork, but in the end, it's really there for their benefit.
True. Look, I think that's kind of part of the friction points between, over the years, between the formal part of the financial sector, which stokvels are a part of, right? In the more regulated banking side of things, right? The regulation there, for good reason, is actually quite hectic. But I think what we do generally, us as Absa, is we acknowledge that these groups sometimes can be large. I think on average they talk of a number of maybe 11, 12, but some of these stokvels can actually be quite large. So in terms of us creating a relationship with them, we only look at the signatories, right? 2 or 3 of these signatories. That's where the FICA paperwork and the formalities happen, but we do acknowledge that they are part of a bigger group. But so that relationship, we are then able to form that relationship on that basis with the signatories. Right, we give them access to our apps, online banking, which takes away this the admin burden because it is difficult to keep track of who has contributed what and when, right? So when you have bank account like our Absa Investment Club account, for instance, accessing it through our digital channels, you can that goes away, right? Because you can see from your statement who's contributed what, when, how much is in there, how much has been taken out. So that transparency, which is a big thing in stokvels, the security is also a big thing there. That kind of solves for that, and that has brought us closer and closer together. And I'm excited about the things that we can still do together with stokvels.
Let's talk about that. What can we look forward to? And maybe from an Absa point of view, but even industry-wide in terms of some of the shifts that we see.
Look, I see a future for stokvels in the digital space, us becoming more and more engrossed in digital capabilities. Right. I see stokvels getting into vehicles that allow them to, like real-time sort of investments, running portfolios on digital channels. I really see that future, and we are very close to getting there. Right. I see us growing in the way we partner. Right. We don't see stokvels just as customers, right? We see them as partners. Like I'd say, they take care of 50 billion annually in savings, right? So that's a partner, right? Collectively, we see them. I see that partnership growing between us and stokvels. The digital capabilities, we're going into AI now. I think there's access to investment vehicles beyond our borders. That I see a future, if it's I'm sure it's already starting, or if it's not started already, I see a future in that. I see much more participation, much more sophistication in terms of the average stokvel member. So big things. Big things.
In my mind, I'm thinking of little asset managers in the groups of stokvels, right?
Yes. We a lot of, like I was saying, interesting stories that we picked up along the way in our engaging with our partners. We were talking about earlier about Jan Riches. They incidentally won 100,000 as part of our inaugural Stockvel Awards. And I think what they are trying to do in terms of empowering themselves as young women, that's what we see. You spoke of little asset managers. They're looking into growing digitally. When you do speak to them, I'm sure they will talk about their plans around building, without stealing their thunder, building an app that really empowers them and empowers other Stockvels. I'm excited about where they're headed and how we can potentially partner with them.
100%. And speaking of that journey, it's already started in terms of partnership with Absa. This is exciting, Tawanda, and of course, more than anything, I think gives us a lot of confidence as retail investors, as individuals who work hard for our money, but really want to make sure that our money works for us too, to make sure that the options are available, the trust, the regulation, and of course, the necessary controls are available through partnering with financial institutions and banks like Absa. And of course, when you work with the right people, have the right platforms, then you're able to ensure that you actively participate in the journey of creating wealth. Tawanda, there's so much more we want to explore. We'll speak to some of the Stockvel members in just a moment. But I guess just as your closing remark, if there's that one thing that anyone who is a member of a Stockvel, looking to join a Stockvel, what that one thing is that we need to bear in mind as we continue to venture into that journey, what should that be?
For me, it's all about savings, right? And being savings and investments. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around saving, and I think Stockvels kind of bridge and help deal with those misconceptions. My advice is just start, right? Just start. You can start. It's much easier to start as a collective, right? Because it gives you that discipline. There's accountability within there that you don't necessarily get when you're on your own, right? So it's almost a forced discipline because you're accountable to other members. So that one thing that I'd say is just start. Saving is amazing, right? I think we borrow quite a lot here in South Africa, right? But a lot of the time that can be avoided, right? We plan, we budget, we save. So start on that journey, and a Stockvel is a really, really good way to get you started.
So what better way than to get some insight from two phenomenal female entrepreneurs who are doing exactly that. They are young, they're dynamic, and they're tapping into technology to make sure that they build a community of women and men who are able to create wealth for themselves within their platform. Today, I'm joined by two phenomenal founders of Jan Riches. As the name suggests, you can imagine by now that they started off from humble beginnings when they created their Stockvel. To give us some insight into their journey, I'm joined by Luyanda, Shosha, as well as Ntokozo, Maphumulo, to give us some details. Such a pleasure to have you, ladies.
We are very excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
I'm excited, and perhaps you'll see the conversation we had with Tawanda as well. And the excitement really is palpable because, as mentioned, Stockvels are innate to many of us as Africans, especially as South Africans. In one way or another, we've been influenced by them in our lives. My parents were members of Stockvels, helped to take me through school. I, at one point, was a member of a Stockvel as well, managed to beef up my savings. And as I sit here today, I think many of us might be so intrigued by your journey as two professionals who come from the financial services space. You've started a Stockvel, and boy, oh boy, 10 years later, have you got a phenomenal story to share. Maybe let's just start with Jan Riches.
Yes.
Ntokozo, give us some perspective here. How did this all come about?
Okay, so we were grads. We met as grads in a grad program in one of the financial institutions, and I had just finished my finance degree, and I thought that I've got my savings on lock and I've got my financial literacy on lock. And I had grown up understanding that there's a phenomenon about being broke in January that looked like it was being accepted by society. So I tried to save myself from that by saving, but because the saving is in your control, you dip into your own savings, and by the time Jan hit, I was broke and embarrassed. January. I was broke and embarrassed, and I picked up the phone, called Luyanda. I'm like, hey, how's it looking on your side? Did you manage to save? And it was evident that she was also struggling, and I called a couple of other people, and we were on the same boat. And I said, guys, we can't be professionals and be in this, we can't continue with making this a norm. We do get a salary every month. Let's make sure that we keep each other accountable by creating a community where we can save together and make sure that we save the money for January so that we are not broke in January, so that we are rich in January, hence Jan Riches. So that was how Jan Riches was born in 2014.
My goodness, this is well over 10 years ago, and it's evolved significantly since then.
Has.
Maybe tell us a little bit more about your growth. How much were you saving back then? How much were you able to pay out, and where are we now?
Oh, the journey has been amazing. Like Ntokozo said, we started off with 6 of us, graduates in a financial institution. That first year in 2014, I think our payout was 21,000 and we divided it up. So we also didn't want to be very strict on you have to contribute the same amount I'm contributing. Everyone was contributing what they needed to do, and at the end, 21,000. And 10 years later, we were sitting with 134 members in our Stockvel, paying out around 2.4 million. And the growth has been really phenomenal. We also are taken back about how much Jan Riches has really grown. And that's where Jan Riches started, and that was been our journey. In 2023, I think we had our first 1 million payout. And that was already a big milestone.
My goodness.
And in 2024 was 2 million. And now we are already 500,000. It's already March.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ladies, these are big numbers.
These are big numbers.
Right? Especially for individuals who are looking to club and save together, because it's often commented that South Africa has a very low savings rate. Financial literacy is very poor. But what we're finding is that when you create an environment, you participate in the mechanics and the systems that are involved, you can actually build a community of people who are able to save incredibly well together. And maybe that's a good point for us just to start off on, you know, just an understanding of the intricacies, the evolution of the constitution, the members, because again, Stockvels are often based on a sense of community and trust that, oh no, I know Luyanda, I know Ntokozo. Gugu, on the other hand,
not so much.
Exactly. So how do you manage that?
Maybe let me start off with the kind of group that we've got. So as you mentioned in your introduction, these are young people, or we are young people that are professionals, and we don't necessarily fit the typical Stockvel spec.
Oh, mama.
Yes. I was going to say before you cross. So we don't typically fit the Stockvel spec. And we do have tools in place to save. So we've got financial institutions in the country that are accessible to everyone. So financial inclusion is not necessarily the problem. The problem that we identified is that even though we are professionals with access to tools, we were struggling with accountability. We were struggling with structure. We were struggling with good financial habits. And so we then came together to hold each other accountable. So Jan Riches is mostly an accountability structure as opposed to, you know, someone needing a place to save, because I know that I dip into my savings. The other person knows that they dip into their savings all the time. So I just need someone who's going to be like, hey, you said you want to save 10,000 rands this year. You're not going to touch that money until the end of January, and we are very strict about that. So I'm just trying to give you a picture of the kind of individuals that are there and why they are with us. So even things like, you know, the constitution that we have, yes, it's a structure, it's there, but we mostly exist firmly because we're an accountability structure.
Got that. And I think that's so important, right? Because it makes the objective and the goal very clear as to why we're doing this together. But ultimately, your individualistic goals and objectives can still be met. And maybe let's talk about that. You mentioned, Luyanda, that people could save their own amounts. And I think that's really important. Sometimes we forget that it's been tough. Interest rates go up and down. Inflation is also a lot of pressure. South Africans are really pinched when it comes to our pockets, and making sure that you create an environment that's safe for someone to say, this month I can, but next month I can't. Or this is the amount I'm willing to stick to, which is a lot less or maybe even more than some of the counterparts. Talk to us about that level of flexibility.
I think what we didn't want to become, we didn't want to be the strict parent. We didn't want to say, everyone in the Stockvel, your minimum savings amount is 1,000 per month. If you don't meet that, then you're out. We met people where they could be able to afford whatever savings that they wanted to afford. At the beginning of the year, we ask each member to commit to a goal. And that goal is your own goal. We are there to hold you accountable and encourage you to meet that goal. So if Gugu said 10,000, Ntokozo said 100,000, Luyanda said 2,000, we are encouraging you to meet that goal. You can decide how you structure it. You can pay 400 this month, 20,000 next month, 10,000 the following month. We are not there to say this is how much you save. We are giving you the platform. We are your accountability partners. We encourage you, and we just want you to meet your goal. And at the end of the year, we want you to be proud of yourself for saying, hey, I said I was going to save 2,000 and I saved 2,000. And that's how we encourage people. And we also make it like a fun environment. We are not just there to say, hey, Benite. We are
Yes.
there to say, guys, remember, pay yourself first. That's our favorite tagline.
Yes.
And Ntokozo termed that, and I love it because every payday she'll just be reminding people, guys, don't forget, pay yourself first.
Right.
So that's how we encourage, and that's how we do contributions. We are a very relaxed Stockvel and digital.
Right?
Yeah.
No meetings.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
no
guys.
meetings, no contributions to the food, the drinks.
We wanted to change.
No.
The role of the Stockvel is
that.
still the same with Jan Riches, but the mechanisms, like you were saying, are different. How we run the Stockvel is very different. So we didn't want to just replicate what our grandparents and our mothers were doing. We were like, we're young, we're flexible. Let's see how we can implement this in a different way, in a fun way, but that still holds you accountable to your specific goal.
Yeah.
I think what I want to add to that is also I recognize the different kinds of individuals that we were exposed to. So we are exposed to professionals that receive a regular income, but we also are exposed to a lot of entrepreneurs who don't receive a regular income. So we didn't want to create a structure that is so strict that keeps people like that out. And so a goal for the year is easier to reach and target because if I get a lump sum as an entrepreneur, then I put it in, then I know I've reached my goal, and then I can relax for the rest of the year. But to us, even people with regular incomes, some of them would rather save their bonus as opposed to a regular. So we are strict about a target. We'll keep you to we'll try to keep you accountable to your target, but we also recognize that there's also varying levels and ways of making money or showing up for your own target.
And I think this is so important, right? Because especially when it comes to financial literacy, but more so financial discipline, it's when something feels hard and too stringent and too controlled that people then feel frustrated, and then it's just difficult to upkeep and maintain that. There's an interesting theme that you both alluded to, which is the technology and digital age. Tawanda also mentioned to us that you guys are the phenomenal winners of the first ever Stockvel Awards that Absa Savings and Investments hosted last year. So firstly, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
And secondly, maybe let's talk to what gave you the winning edge, because this is where the interlink between technology and digital actually came to the fore, that saw you guys actually become the significant winners. What is it that you're doing with technology that makes you so successful?
So as young millennials who mostly run their lives on their phone.
Yeah. We scroll away.
Yes.
And, at the time that we were starting the Stockvel, there was also just a general move in the financial industry away from branches and more so into banking apps, etc. So it wasn't even a question how we were going to run the Stockvel. We were definitely going to have a WhatsApp group, which is a way to run a Stockvel. We were definitely going to open an account and do EFTs, and we were definitely going to give our updates digitally. What we knew wouldn't work for us, or we didn't necessarily need, because we are here because we've drawn from Stockvel principles, but we've also tweaked or not used the ones that we know won't work for us. We didn't see the need for this to be or to have a very strong social aspect to it, as opposed to mostly a financial discipline and accountability and creating financial habits. So we didn't see the need to meet. So if I'm able to give you reports at the end of the month, then you can see that you're transparent enough, I can see that my money's there, then we were good. So that's how we then infused digital into our Stockvel. So till today, I think we only had our first social meeting at year 10.
What? Yes.
This is more than 100 of you.
Yes.
Year 10.
Yeah.
Some of you just know each other through your WhatsApp profile statuses.
Yes.
We don't even know most people.
Yes, that
The
have
other
now
day-
joined us.
The other day I bumped into someone and they were like, Luyanda. And I was like, hi. And they were like, oh, my treasurer. And I was like, and then they mentioned the name. I'm like, oh, because everyone's name. Like,
Yeah.
if you mention any name on our report, I will know it.
Yes.
The face, what
who,
you do,
how you
where
came.
you are, where you're based, I have no idea. And I think that's the evolution of us being
Right.
digital. It's that all these people have trusted us through a referral from Gugu, a referral from Ntokozo, and they have then just come onto the WhatsApp group, and we've of course digitized certain things, because once you get to 100 and something, it's really hard to just be like, okay, we'll just add you. So we've used a lot of the cloud-based technology to do a membership form, where if you're interested, you just send the membership form to Google. Google fills it out. It gets sent back to our cloud-based storage, and that's how we keep track on who wants to join. And it's open, and you can just send it to whoever you want to send it to, and we don't have to know them. And they can join, and then we send them an email to say, this is the link for the WhatsApp group. They join the WhatsApp group. We don't need to add people. So a lot of the things that we've done around digitizing the stock file has made it work so perfectly, and it's really contributed to the growth of the stock file.
You know what makes this conversation so much more empowering is because it shows us again that level of convergence between financial services, systems and controls, but of course transparency and trust.
Yes.
And years ago, perhaps the perception from Stockvel members was like, imali yami bank, they're gonna steal my money through interest, which is not the case, and they'd rather put it under the mattress. But what you're showing is that the very same level of compliance that the banks require is something that we can easily implement through the use of technology within our stock files themselves. And I'm keen to understand, maybe if you can flesh out just a lot more how that has enhanced transparency, trust as well, because when money is involved,
emotions
are so high. Exactly. But it's also made it easier as well to actually tap into some of the vast array of financial products that banks and financial services institutions typically need. That also requires, transparency in terms of paperwork.
So we're definitely big on transparency.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that we...
You don't disappear in December, huh?
No.
Okay.
We do joke sometimes with the members, and they're like, hey, don't joke with our money. But one thing that we've always committed to is to over-communicate. So whatever's happening, even with the Absa Stockvel Awards, when we were entering, we told the Stockvel members, listen, this is what we're doing. When we have, at the end of each month, we want to give you a report to show you that this is how much everyone has saved. Okay. So we don't just tell you this is how much you've saved. We'll show everything in the account. This is how much is in the account. This is how much each individual has saved. And I think that transparency creates trust for people to know what we're doing. We've also created a profile for ourselves. This is easily accessible to anyone who wants to join, for you to know how the Stockvel works, for you to know who's Luyanda, who's Ntokozo. We've got our LinkedIn profiles there if anyone has doubt on who they are.
So we could even find you at work.
Yes. And we proactively give you that information.
Exactly. So oversharing, over-communicating, giving out as much information as possible in order for you to build the trust, because most of the people who join us are referrals and we don't know them. So if they can have access to that information, it makes it so much easier for people to trust, to see that we are transparent, and to be able to be comfortable. Some people will join, like in Jan, in the group, just to see what's going on.
Out.
See, 2 months, okay, so I see people are actually getting a report. They are telling us that this is what's happening. So that's how we build the trust and the transparency.
100%, which is really necessary, especially when money is involved. I'm keen for a moment, if we can just go back to your members. One thing you both have highlighted is, of course, these are individuals who are professionals. You're looking to keep each other accountable. You're actively making use of digital tools and technology to enhance the level of transparency. But give us a snapshot of who your members are. Not names and suggestions, but maybe how much they save, what they've done with the money, the level of success that they've been able to attain, and maybe just even the shifts in financial behavior that we might not be privy to, that you've witnessed firsthand from your members.
Okay, so firstly, touching on the last bit of your question just now, how have we helped members become accountable to themselves? So as soon as we let you know, or rather we say, okay, what's your goal for the year? You put that number down, and then we very clearly state that under no circumstances will the funds be withdrawn until January.
Ooh.
Yes.
This is how we are keeping you.
So I can't say I just need some change for a holiday.
You can't say my ceiling just fell.
Tire.
Sorry, we can't help you. The money only comes out in January. So in order for people to show up for themselves, they have used tools like stop orders as an example, because it makes it easy for them to build the habit. As Luyanda mentioned, I remind people on all of the paydays that hey, it's the 15th. Pay yourself first. It's the 20th. It's the 25th. It's the 31st. So that has helped in terms of creating structure and people showing up for themselves. But who is in our Stockvel? So some of the professionals that exist in our Stockvels are people with backgrounds that I know that I have, where I still take care of my folks.
Yeah.
And there's a particular member who has a mom whose house wasn't in a good state, and she had such good saving habits. She saved up money over 3-4 years to build her mother a house from scratch.
Cash.
Yeah, boo.
Guys.
And I'm going to shock you even more. So now when she was done with this magnificent structure and she, stood and watched, she realized that her mother lives next door to her brother, who is her uncle. And now how can my mom have such a beautiful house and my uncle live in the place that he does? And so she went and built her house for her uncle as well.
Cash.
From the Stockvel savings.
From the Stockvel savings.
We sometimes joke and we say sikapeyena. It's like we exist there for her because she saves north of 100,000 rand with the Stockvel, and it's created such great competition within the group because now people are wanting to say, hey, I want to be number one this month, because we also highlight who was the biggest saver in the month, and those are the kind of things that we highlight. But people have been able to pay off their cars. People that see a lot of benefit in being a part of a Stockvel that only pays out in January are also parents, because you get that little 5% discount if you pay the full amount at the beginning of the year. And it's funny how after everyone showing up for themselves, we get special calls to say, thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm like, but you saved your own money. And I think of us like Take a Lot or any delivery service where, you bought yourself something, but now it's arriving. So it feels like a gift to yourself. So people have really been able to pay for the brother and sister's university fees. They've been really able to show up in ways that have amazed us and I know it personally keeps me wanting to show up for our members because of the stories and the testimonies that we get through the members showing up for themselves.
I find this so fascinating, and I think you're right. Money does have that way of, influencing and shifting our behavior, especially when you realize that, hold on, I can do more. I am capable. Those goals, those objectives are really attainable. And I find it so refreshing that quite literally you are helping people change the trajectory of their lives.
Yes.
Not just their own, but also those that they love and care for.
Yes.
I'm so intrigued as we expand on this conversation further, because it also sounds like you guys have a strong base of women. And whether you look at stats from EPSA, the Savings Institute, or many other banks and other organizations, it does seem as though when it comes to financial behavior, women tend to ensure that there's not only a heightened level of discipline, but that there's the ripple effect, the multiply effect as to how they use their money. How has that shown up in your Stockvel?
Definitely. I think around 80% of our members are women.
Yes,
and
north of 75.
Yes, north of 75% of our members are women, and not just black women, colored women, Indian women. We have so we've
transcended races even.
Transcended race, and I think it speaks to the fact that we are exposed and we are part of a professional setting. So other races as well who aren't necessarily part of what we would call the Stockvel market, or because our grandmothers and our mothers, we know, but not necessarily other races. So lots of women in the Stockvel, lots of mothers, lots of wives who are just pioneering and saving up. And one of our close friends, she saved up the 1 year and she got her payout from Jan Riches. She got home, she said to her husband, babe, let's go out for dinner. Her husband was like, hey, well,
January.
It's January 6th. What do you mean, let's go out for dinner? She's like, no, it's on me. He was like, what do you mean it's on you? Where are you getting this money? And then she was like, come, let's go to dinner. I'll tell you all about it. The next year,
the husband was part of the Stockvel.
Wow, guys.
So literally what you're saying, ripple effect.
Yeah.
It really is a ripple effect because people see, like you can see when someone has a certain step in Jan, you're
exactly.
like,
she's a bit too confident.
Spring in a step.
This one.
It's that Jan
So
Riches.
it has been an amazing ripple effect, and not just on having the money, but helping others in the family. We have family members that recruit their family members. I remember at one point we had like four sisters and their mother.
Wow.
In the Stockvel. It's been really amazing.
Yes. Someone even has her mother-in-law.
Oh, yes.
And the brothers-in-law and the, people have trusted us so much that they really just can't wait to invite their loved ones to join us.
Look at you guys reshaping societal constructs, right, that are typically deemed to be negative relationships or associations. And I think this is important because for anyone who's watching as well, this probably underscores the importance of financial literacy. And when you're learning from people that you know, that you care about, where you see their goals being attained in front of your eyes, then it boosts your confidence to say, when I know better, I can do better.
Yes.
Money might not buy me happiness, but it sure is an enabler to the tools and the opportunities and the resources that can provide that level of happiness. What I also want to expand upon perhaps is where to from here. You guys have been in it for 10 years.
Yes.
You're clearly, shifting marriages, families, generations, even interactions between in-laws. And I think it's a beautiful story to share that underscores just the efforts you've put in. But when we look at, the journey going forward, what does that look like for Jan Richards going forward?
So I've always been intrigued about the power of stokvels in general as a concept, even before starting Jan Richards. And I've always known that, lazy funds are not going to get us far. I mean, if we're able to save 2.5 million.
Can you imagine that money on the stock market?
Can you imagine that money on the stock market? So we do have aspirations of going the direction of investing a lot more and gaining a lot more ROI from the savings that we've got, because there is power in us just collectively having these funds. Luyanda mentioned earlier, it's only the beginning of April and we've got like 600,000 sitting in the account.
Nice.
And at a minimal, however much percent that we get, we already could be having a little flatlet, as an example, that we could be owning. So we are trying to move towards investments. However, there are some considerations, and this is perhaps why we haven't gotten to that state fast enough. Not only are we, cross-racial in the members that we've got, and also international, because it's not only South African people that are in the Stockvel.
Oh, wow.
Norway,
Singapore,
Zimbabwe. America, Zimbabwe. So not only, remember, we are fully digital.
In multiple currencies.
No, those numbers are saving in South African currency, but we've transcended even, geography.
Got you.
So with that also comes the fact that we also attract different age groups. We've got a 20-something-year-old and we've got a 60-something-year-old with varying risk appetites.
Yes.
So that has been the tricky part of finding the sweet spot of how and what do you venture into from an investment perspective that suits the appetite of the risk that we are experiencing or seeing, or that is a reality in the Stockvel. So those are the kind of things that we navigate. We're toying around, could we split these groups? Can we encourage longer term savings, even if we haven't gotten to the point where we're ready to do ETFs, but can we allow you to save a little bit longer for 3 years, because we've had those requests where I want my money, but not all of it, So we are at that phase now where we are wanting to pivot from an investment perspective, but also scale up in having as many members as we can. And in order for us to do that, then it means that we need to be a little bit more serious and deliberate with the kind of technology that we get into, because it will allow us to then scale. Right now we're using free technology and we are coping, but we need a better automation. We need better access to the platform and transparency, even at a level that doesn't require us. So pivot, scale, and invest.
100%. growth is clearly what you guys are looking for.
And
you
it's
mentioned
all
new
the time.
members.
Stressing us.
When do we sign up? Asking on behalf of all of us.
We'll send you the membership form, Gugu. You can share it far and wide.
Fantastic, ladies. This has been such an amazing conversation and
loved it.
so practical, so personal, and yet so inspiring as well for anyone who's been watching, who either is a member of a Stockvel currently, perhaps is still toying with the idea, or perhaps even just wanting to witness how it is that you've evolved in order to change individuals' lives. Your closing message, I guess, Luyanda, we'll leave this one with you, to members who might be watching with regard to starting a Stockvel or at least growing and evolving over time. What's your word of encouragement?
I think when you're wanting to start a Stockvel, you have to have a certain purpose and goal. We have so many Stockvels right now that are investing in so many different things, property, investing in the JSE, anything and everything. It's so amazing to watch the growth of Stockvels. Get your purpose and goal together. Get people who align with your purpose and goal, and build the transparency. Encourage people, hold people accountable, and you'll see that the growth will really come naturally, because those are the fundamental things of having a Stockvel. If you have that community and you have the transparency and you have that one goal and one purpose, there's amazing things that can be done. I mean, we are like road to 500 now.
Road to 500.
Road to 500.
Count me in there. Ladies, it's been such a pleasure having you join us for this episode of our JSE Investor Avenue podcast. And of course, strength, growth, and way more success, not only to you, but many more of your members. May they continue to not only change their lives by using their financial discipline, but may it also have ongoing ripple effects in their families, their communities, and the truth is, the world over.
Thank you so much, Gugu.
Thank you.
to
This
the
has
JSE
been
for
fun.
having
Thank you
us.
very much. We are honored to have been invited, and this was
Fantastic.
fun. Thank you.
There you have it, the founders of Jan Riches, Ntokozo Maphumulo as well as Luyanda Shosha, joining us today to help us understand how it can all be so simple. But you need to get started. And as you get started, you need to grow. You need to evolve, and most importantly, hold yourself and your members accountable. Well, we're excited that you've joined us for this conversation. Share your feedback, as always, and maybe even share your story as to how you started your Stockvel or evolved and grown within it. Maybe you're keen to join theirs. So am I. We'll share those details later. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.